All right, greetings from the Dark Continent. Conscious Caracal here, or Adams Van Sale, here to shine a light on the goings on down south. And joining me here tonight to help me on that mission is Penuel The Black Pen. He's someone whose platforms I've been honored to appear on, and there might be a future appearance in the works. I'm not going to spoil too much yet, but he is on the other side of the interview chair tonight. But it's going to be more of a conversation, not an interview per se. Penuel, welcome on the show. I'm looking forward to our conversation tonight.
Meneer Van Sale, I'm really honored not just to be invited, but to know you, and to know the work that you've been doing. So thank you so much for inviting me on the platform.
Absolutely, you're an interesting guy, and that's what this platform is for. So I think the best place to start is let's start at the beginning at the intro of my show. I think that would work very well. So I intro all my shows with greetings from the Dark Continent, and that's based on very long ago, back in the day, people on the outside of Africa had no idea what was going on here. It was a dark continent in regards to information. All types of myths and weird stories were believed about giants and monsters and stuff walking around here. But the thing is, people laugh at those people hundreds of years ago for their ignorance about what was happening in Africa. But I think it's funny that I think today people are just as misinformed on the outside looking in. They just think they know more today because we live in the information age. But I think people are just as struggling to make sense of what's going on here on the African continent. What are some of your thoughts on that?
You're very right, man. And you speak about people from the outside. I'm actually more shocked about people on the inside. South Africans and the majority of South Africans, which is black people, have never really traveled the African continent. When you tell them about places like Nigeria and Ghana, they think of rampant poverty and crime and dark places. If you travel the rest of South Africa, you'll find there's a lot of ordinary South Africans that are scared of coming to places like Johannesburg. They believe there's rampant crime. You might get raped in the streets, which if you look at the crime stats, those kind of things can scare people, but it's not the way people think it is. So it's not just people on the outside. It doesn't help when people from the inside as well also don't believe in this continent. And it almost feels to me like there are forces at play, external forces who have partnered with internal leaders on the African continent to make sure that the message that still goes out there is just a message of crime and doom and gloom. And we almost never celebrate good people. If we do celebrate good people, it's not because of work they're doing here, it's because of work they're doing somewhere else, which is kind of a bit crazy for me.
And that's the thing. I think you make a very important point there. One of my friends actually recently made a similar point when we were talking about specifically people in South Africa and their opinions about what's going on the rest of the continent. And according to many people in South Africa, it doesn't seem to be a priority for them to be kept up to date with what's going on the continent around them. South Africans seem to be much more preoccupied with the news in America or in Europe, rather than what's going on right next door about what's going on in Africa itself. And I think it's a big shame. I think it's something that needs to change. You need to know what's going on around you specifically, if you have any interest in staying in Africa.
We've got a leadership vacuum, across the board in various spaces, because the easiest solution to that is leadership. You look at a place like Israel, where I know for a fact all the Jewish kids, for example, regardless of where they are in the world, there's a fund that allows them to travel at least to Israel, which means they get to see the world somewhat. If you look at Mecca as well, a lot of the Muslims have got funds as well, which allow them to travel. From a South African perspective, at least, it should hold that we should at least have some fund to send South Africans at least around the continent to learn other African customs and cultures, and more importantly, to go and find opportunities, to send young South Africans out there and say, go and find fertile earth for us where we can go and plow something, we can go and grow, or at least where we can go and make an impact. You find a lot of the foreign aid work, a lot of the charity work done on the African continent is not even done by privileged Africans. It's done by privileged people from other parts of the world. And when you look at the maths, you might find that a lot of those people are not even as well off as some of the South Africans that live in Cape Town, Durban, even in Johannesburg. So it kind of becomes crazy when you start traveling the continent and meeting these people to see that our leadership, at least from a political perspective and maybe largely from a business perspective, is not the way it should be. I think every political party, every big business should be sending kids around the African continent to go and make an impact, to go and find opportunities. Instead, they normally send kids to London, they send some kids to Asia, they send some kids to America, but never around the African continent. And it's going to take Asians, Europeans, Americans to come into the African continent, do charity work, number one, and then come and build businesses. And then we'll complain later, or we'll be begging them to hire us on the African continent. It's kind of a joke, but like I said, it happens even within this country, where you find outsiders from your dorpy coming in to build businesses, and you wonder why has no one in the town come to take advantage of the beauty of your town or your city.
Off is that this is not something that's just that only applies to Africa. This is something that Europeans should take interest in what's happening on the European continent. Americans should take interest in what's happening on the North American continent. This is the natural way of looking at the world around you. But we become so obsessed with what's happening on the other side of the world and start getting depressed about things happening 10,000 kilometers away. It's not normal. It's not natural. And I see people get completely obsessed and distraught and depressed over things that are very far away from them, while there's real problems and real issues right next door, and they don't seem to care.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we need to fix, to be honest. And again, I think it's a leadership thing. I do understand that traveling and being an explorer historically it's been for a certain type of people. You know, the ordinary person is very scared of venturing out, which is normally why the ordinary person lives an average, mediocre life. But I do think we have a unique opportunity. As you said, we've got technology. You know, I think flights are cheaper. We don't have to get onto a ship and travel for months or years to another country or another continent. You know, we don't have to ride donkeys and take wagons. You know, we've got
on the way there.
Sorry?
Yeah, and you probably die on the way there if it's happening a few hundred years ago.
You probably die on the way there or get stuck somewhere. I really think we need to make an effort. Like I said, it almost feels engineered. It feels like the global elites kind of want things this way, because if the world gets smaller and people start connecting and people start appreciating their homes, their continents, there's a danger that we might start seeing that they're not as cool and as smart and as brilliant as they claim to be. And we'll start seeing that the power lies within us, and we are just as brilliant as anyone in Asia or in Europe or in America. I mean, that's one of the things you realize when you start traveling, that there are brilliant people in some of the scariest countries you hear of, some of the poorest nations. And then there are really ignorant, idiotic, very mediocre people in places like China, places like the United States. I mean, the ignorance in America, people still think we live with elephants. It's mind-blowing. You know,
that's why
you go to Europe and people are still asking you about Nelson Mandela. It's crazy.
Yeah, how's it going with him these days?
Yeah, how's Nelson, you know. So
no, man, Penuel, that's why I say it's still the dark continent. It's still a information black hole for a lot of people, especially on the outside. But your show, and that's what I want to move on to, is with your show, you're doing exactly what I'm doing as well, and that's shining a light on it might be just a little candle or a little flashlight in a sea of darkness, but you're shining a light on what's going on by having interesting and insightful conversations with some of the interesting up-and-coming thinkers and some established thinkers here in South Africa. I've listened to many of your episodes, and they cover you cover a wide range of philosophical worldviews, ideological worldviews of your guests. But what you're doing there is you're exposing the world and the country to people that have some interesting things to say. You might not agree with all of them. You might disagree with most of them, but it's an important thing to do. What do you think has attracted people to your show? I mean, I've given a little bit of an intro to it, but what do you think your type of format that you're doing, the conversations that you're having, what's attracted your audience? Why do people, to put it very bluntly, why do people care?
I have to give a shout out to Joe Rogan in America. The Joe
Hmm.
Rogan Experience, I think, is the biggest podcast on the planet currently.
Mm.
And the one thing I picked up from Joe Rogan is that he had the ability to have very, very interesting and educational and quirky conversations with almost anyone. And that's what I wanted to do. But more than that, I wanted to find either interesting people or people with an interesting story, or maybe even if I bring an ordinary person, be able to somehow get them to share something interesting about themselves. To be fully honest, back in high school, I went to a school called Newcastle High School in Newcastle in KwaZulu Natal. And I remember because I was deputy head boy there, speaking to our principal, Mr. Jan Tutoy, and speaking to our deputy principal, who was Meneer Swanepoel. And one of my wishes was to do exchange programs where some of the kids from the suburbs go and visit schools in the townships, and not only visit the schools, but also stay there for like a week. Because I figured it would be so immensely educational and it would do a lot for nation building. And when I started creating my platform, to be honest, I think I'm still in an experimentation phase where I'm mostly inviting people I know or people I meet. One of my wishes is to actually go and find the most absurd people out there. I have a fantasy. I have fantasies of sitting with hardcore racists. I have fantasies of speaking to what people call witch doctors and sangomas. I have fantasies of sitting with Nigerian drug dealers or building hijackers in South Africa. People that will tell you an interesting story and show you that they have children, they have dreams, they were children at some point, and there's a big chance that a lot of the way they are is highly misunderstood, because once you understand where they come from and where they are, that's where you now have an opportunity to then, to what we'll speak about the dark continent. You now have an opportunity to teach them something they didn't know, or for them to teach you. Sitting with prostitutes as an example. There's an amazing channel called the Agenda Network where it's stories from ex-convicts. Very interesting educational stories. There's a documentary, one of my favorite, called Humans. It's an international documentary, which it's just ordinary people speaking about love, speaking about death in different languages. There's subtitles, but you start realizing so many of us are the same. So many of us are scared and we don't know. So I think because of me being so well read, I've traveled a bit, I've watched a lot of stuff, I've met a lot of people. I think also because I'm highly empathetic, I have an ability to sit with almost anyone on the planet and try to have a stimulating and educational conversation. And then from there, the hope is that the audience, who are not really meant to be in the room, it's almost like they're spying on us. I try to get the audience to then come into that safe space to then engage with us.
Hmm. And that's the thing, Penuel. I told you this. It's no secret that we also had another interview on your channel that's probably going to be somewhere in the future going to be published. I don't know how secret you want to keep it, but I told you in that conversation that it's important to listen as well. What you're describing here is just being a professional listener. You sit there and you let people tell their stories, let them share their experiences, and it's such a rare breed of person that can just sit and listen. Everyone just wants to wait and talk for their turn to talk or their turn to share their ideas. But very few people, especially today, can sit and go listen to other people. Don't get me started on listening to people that you disagree with. Some people don't even want to listen to people just because they're a certain race or because they're from a certain background or a certain culture. They'll say, Penuel, why did you invite this person? He is X or he's Y. What does that have to do with his ideas? Can you disprove what he's been saying? And I see here the audience is very, very engrossed so far by the conversation. Pumlani says, Penuel dropping knowledge bombs. Not true says, so true. And someone else here also said something. Oh, yeah. Not sure. Also said based. I like this guy. All right. So on that point, on that note, Penuel, who do you think is your audience? I mean, we've talked now about what has attracted people to your show and what you tried to achieve, but from what you've seen, from talking to your fans, reading the comments, who listens to your show? Who's there week in and week out? Who's tuning in?
I think before I speak about my audience, I wanted to mention the fact that I'm a member of AfriForum and how that's upset so many people, but at the same time forced so many people to go and research what the hell is going on with this organization. I thought they were just racist and white. Why would they let this black guy be a member? Which already tells you that there's so much ignorance around what AfriForum does and what it stands for. The fact that I speak about Orania, which people know as like this white racist dorpy somewhere, and I'm saying, look, there's so much we can learn from them. They may not be open to everyone, but there's something to learn, and people don't know what's going on there. There's a farmer, I don't know if he's still alive now, goes by the name Dirk. There's a YouTube episode, Philadelphia Arc. I think it's other side of Pretoria, which is also a very interesting narrative, because there it's poor white Afrikaans people who are kind of lost in the world, don't have jobs, don't know where to go. And when you speak to black South Africans, the majority of them, they don't know that they are poor white people, as an example. So I would want to have conversations with people like that, to get an idea. And look, some of these people are very racist. And when you actually take time, like you said, to listen and understand, you realize that they've been living in this bubble. And in this bubble, when they hear black, all they know is corrupt politicians, criminals, etc. I mean, imagine going to Europe as a minority black person, and every criminal you encounter is white. Every person who is corrupt is a white politician. All of a sudden, crime and everything looks white, which is kind of what happens in South Africa. But then obviously we have a dynamic history of how things happen with apartheid and colonization. My audience currently is still small, I think. I think my platform has only grown, or my brand has grown in the past year. I'm hoping to give it 5 to 10 years to see what happens. I really hope to start breaking out into the continent, into the world at large. Big chunk of South Africans, largely black South Africans. When I look at my YouTube, there are so many white people that comment these days, especially my Facebook actually grew quite large last year. 158,000 followers, I think, on Facebook. A lot of Tannies there. If you ran for president, I'd vote for you, which I think is a nice compliment, but I'm not getting into politics. And I'm starting to see a whole lot more of international audience. Some of them, they DM me, people from Canada, people from the United States, black and white. There are people from the SADC region. I've got guys from the DRC, Kenya, guys from Nigeria. I don't really have Europeans, but there's a few guys in the UK because they understand English. A lot of them are South African. And then there's a lot of South Africans that are in Asia that are trying to put some of their people on. And I think the challenge for us, and this comes with traveling, the challenge for us is to try and get our content to be translated and to have subtitles, so that when people can listen to this and read it in Mandarin or in French, especially for the continent. Africa's half English and half French. Get it in French, get it in German if possible, and Spanish. Spanish is one of the most spoken languages in the world. That's Latin America, South America, parts of Europe, etc. So if we want to reach the world, I think Nelson Mandela said, if you want to speak to a person's heart, you speak to them in their language, and that's how we're going to grow. For now, I'm still small, I think, but I think the reach is growing. And my hope is, as I have more conversations with more diverse people, whoever those people may be, probably know other people who are then going to come visit just for their episode, and then hopefully stay, and then get to watch others and learn new things. So it's generally that for me.
And you point to something there that I think is an area that a lot of people miss, and that's the fact that and I keep reminding people that South Africa is the world in a country. It's such a place that the world can learn from. There's so many case studies here, so many things that many other countries, problems here that many other countries don't even know that they might encounter somewhere in the future. There are a lot of countries out there that are South Africanizing. I always say they more and more South Africa-like problems are coming to the fore, and they can learn a lot. We are the future in many regards. So you can ignore South Africa at your own peril, or you can pay close attention and maybe get a glimpse into the future, learn something new about a wide variety of things. Firstly, on the in regards to a state collapse, or a state whose capacity is deteriorating, what happens in that case, and how do people and communities react to that? That's an excellent way that South Africa can be insightful. Secondly, inter-community or intercultural tension or cooperation, how that happens, what happens when that happens. Very, very rich in case studies of that. Then also, what happens when a new type of nation is created, like, for example, when we talk about the new South Africa, when you have, for example, that large of an upheaval of an old order. I mean, there's so many things that can, and community-based reactions to crime, potholes, electricity crisis, everything. There's so many things that you can learn from South Africa, but everyone just looks at South Africa, and now once a year the world freaks out about our country for some reason. One type of story makes the international headlines. We are the talked about place for a week, and then everyone forgets that we exist again. And I think there's a lot of reasons to be paying close attention, especially if you're living in a country that's showing signs of South Africanization. For example, we now have countries in Europe that are starting to experience load shedding. I think last month in the UK, they had to activate their emergency coal reserve generators to avoid load shedding. They don't know what it is. They're not ready. Penuel, they don't know what hours a day without electricity is like. We've adapted over 15 years to the phenomenon. Those countries don't know, and they better start paying attention to what it's like and how you react to it and how that challenge presents itself. But unfortunately, I mean, some people are listening to my advice, but it's still falling on a lot of deaf ears, it seems.
I think at some point we're going to become the experts that they fly in, to Europe and America and say, look, we've got experts from South Africa who have lived in 2 decades of load shedding to come and advise us. Again, going back to the dark continent and maybe a dark country, I don't know if it's SA Tourism that came up with this concept of short left, to try and encourage tourism within the country. If you look at Johannesburg alone, you spoke about how cosmopolitan we are. You go to places like Fordsburg, Mayfair, where they've got night markets. You literally are visiting India. You go to places like Hillbrow and Yeovil, and you're literally visiting West Africa. You go to the east of Joburg, places like Sandringham, Waverley, those very Jewish neighborhoods, as an example. You obviously go to places like Soweto, which is Black South Africa. If you travel just a bit outside of Joburg, places like Mulder's Drift, some of the squatter camps, there's literally still people living in mud huts and shacks. And then obviously you go to your Sandhurst, Sandton, Bryanston, where people have mansions, triple story, etc. It's so fascinating. Bedford View, where there's Lebanese and other foreign people. It's so fascinating how many different cultures and stories there are just in Johannesburg alone. And I wish more of those stories could come out, even for South Africans. Spend time with Indian Muslims and find out what their internal politics are. Never mind South African politics. Like we speak about the drug issues, places like Westbury, where there were people that were shot, etc. That's like a microcosm of the Cape Flats and drugs, which is something you'd find in Eastern Europe. There's prostitution rings, there's human trafficking. There's Afrikaner neighborhoods here who live for Siebendelaan and going to watch rugby on the weekends, and they go listen to choir, and they live in their own bubble. And the kids just want to be a Wolfsian or Wolf Macy or whatever. And there's people that live to be in a marching band. There's people that go rowing. When you go to places like KZN, there's Zulu dancing, traditional dancing called Indlam. If you go to Mpumalanga, there's the Ndebele people, where Dr. Esther Mahlang became a world celebrity. These people live it's mind blowing, at least to me. And I wish they could tell just their stories, like the taxi industry. Forget about South African politics. What is happening within the taxi industry? What's happening within Afrikaans people? Are you guys still the same? How do Pretoria Afrikaners feel about Bloemfontein Afrikaners, feel about Cape Town Afrikaners, as an example? And you're like, aren't they all the same thing? How do colored people from Lenasia feel about coloreds from the Cape Flats or Mitchell's Plain? Then you realize they're not the same. Zulu people from KZN listen to isiZulu in Joburg and they like, what weird language are you speaking? You guys are not real Zulus. And it's fascinating and interesting stories of our diversity, which I worry sometimes that our diversity from an economic perspective is one of the things that hold us back, because we have this melting pot of cultures which can't be unified because we do things differently. If you want to do business with Muslims, you have to do things in a halal way. If you want to do business with Jewish people, you have to do it in a kosher way. If you're doing it with Zulu people, they have their own way of doing it. If you're doing it with Afrikaners, they're going to take you to a rugby game and give you biltong and cook sisters, you know. But it's fascinating stories, and I don't think South Africans know the stories well enough, and that's why it's easy for an EFF, an ANC, even groups like maybe the DA, Freedom Front, to just paint one narrative and be like, this is it. And then you get so many people that haven't traveled, that don't know, that just agree. Ah, that's true. And you're like, no, it's true in your neighborhood and at your kerk and at your school. But you've never, I've met white people in South Africa who have lived here for 7 generations and they've never been to a township, ever. So when they hear township, it's almost like traveling into Africa. They don't know what you're talking about. Are they not going to steal our phones? Are they not going to kidnap us? And you're like, I really wish we could travel more and speak to each other. Trevor Noah once said, prejudice doesn't hold up well in contact. And what that generally means is, if I were to take the most racist black person, and I believe black people can be racist, I've seen it. If I can take the most racist black person, and this would be an amazing reality TV show, and put them in like a really racist white neighborhood, and then exchange with like a really racist white person, and get them to live in a very racist black neighborhood, and get them to spend like a week there. Obviously, they must have a tour guide and those things. And then let them share their experiences afterwards, to be like, these people have children that have dreams like ours. These people struggle just like us. These people are also scared of crime. These people are also worried about certain things. These people want to be happy. They want jobs. They want to give back. White Afrikaans man goes to a black church and says, these people love God. I thought we were the only people that believed in God. And these people just, they slaughter cows and they do this voodoo stuff. But these people really love Jesus and they sing so well. And then you get the black people to visit, like I said, certain spaces with white people, whether it's Afrikaans or English, whatever, to learn. So you guys also have depression. So your family is also struggling. You guys have a bond. Like, I didn't know white people have a bond. I didn't know you guys actually comb your hair. I thought white people just wake up in the morning and they do this and their hair is fine. And you're like, that's crazy. So yeah, man, I think I just wanted to share that. I even forgot what your question was, but our country is so dynamic and I wish more people could indulge. And the least we can do, like you said, is shine this little candle and this little light, because he's become a controversial character, but in the spirit of Nelson Mandela, we have a nation to build. And I think we have so many great things we could do together. We can keep the things that are different. There's nothing wrong with being conservative and keeping your own thing. But there are so many cool things. You look at the Springboks, one of the best examples of diverse people working together for a common objective and becoming so successful internationally. So I forgot what your question was, Ernest. I'm so sorry.
No, that's how our conversation works. It's not like I said, it's not an interview. But yeah, what you mentioned there is very important. That when you live in a country like South Africa, you are so spiritually and experientially impoverished if you don't go experience all the different communities and climates and scenery and everything, all the variety out there. It's at your disposal. It's there. You can go visit it. You can go experience it. But a lot of people just stay in their street. A lot of people just stay within their comfort zone. And Pumlani says, before I continue, just want to give the chats, the live viewers, some love. Pumlani says, good points, Penuel. And Sideliner Opinions had a very nice message for you, Penuel. He said, I can see you are dreaming big, Penuel. Stay confident, focused, humble, hardworking, and motivated, and Lady Fortune will smile on you. Oh, that's a very nice comment. Thank you, Sideline Opinions. Now, yeah, what I wanted to say is, now you've got all these experiences that you're closing yourself off from. But luckily, I grew up in a household where my parents made an effort to expose me and my brother to the entirety of South Africa, showing us every side of South Africa, wherever they could take us. Tourist hotspots, but also impoverished and completely off the tourist radar spots, everything that there is to experience. And that's given me a lot of confidence to go into different communities as well without fear. I mean, if my memory is very bad, I can't remember if it was when last year, but somewhere last year, can't remember the month, I went to a event in Alexandra. It was the opening of a community bakery there, and that I was invited to because I had it's a long story. I actually wrote it a piece on it. But yeah, it was a great experience walking there in the streets of a township that you only hear about in the media when they're talking about how much of a crime hotspot or how much of how bad the poverty there is. But walking there in the street, walking past people, not feeling in danger, not feeling that people are stalking me or trying to see how they can rob me, just walking there and experiencing it. And it's what more people need to be able to do. But with that said, it's not something, I don't encourage people to use other communities almost like a zoo where you go there just to look at it. You go there to experience it, but you experience it like a human being experiencing other human beings. You talk to the people there. You don't go there just to gawk at people or to gawk at the community. That's what tourists do. Tourists, 100%. It's something that actually, it might be a controversial opinion of mine, but I in South Africa, there's this weird phenomenon where tourists come just to experience poverty, almost like poverty tourism, but they don't talk to the 100%. People. It's to put it very bluntly, it's like they're going to a zoo, they're going to a poverty zoo. And it doesn't sit right with me. With me, it has to be a human experience. You have to talk to those people. You have to experience it like a human being, not like a person on a roller coaster or on a track that you're just going and seeing the sights, but you're just looking at them and not interacting with it. But that's why I think it's an important point that you make, that there you go. Hindo as the word for it. It's called poverty porn. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And 100%. That's not the right way to go about it. But I completely support what you are describing. You're describing the opposite. You're describing interacting with the world in an organic human way. And that's what needs to be done. Doesn't just apply to South Africa. It means to living in any country that has many sides to it. So you have to explore those different sides. See what's out there to be explored. Don't just sit in your little comfort zone forever. Then you're going to be like a bonsai tree. A bonsai tree stays small because it's in a small little pot. But if you plant that's the amazing thing. If you take a bonsai tree and you plant it in soil that's not restricted, it turns into a massive tree again. It doesn't stay small.
Yeah. It's crazy. I just wanted to say, most Black people in South Africa that come from townships are very scared of visiting Alex and even places like Deep Sluit. So again, townships are not the same. There's a township east of Joburg, Eguruleni, called Spruit View. Beautiful homes, very well kept. Compared to Alex, look, there's Northern Alex, pretty new homes, and then there's like Southern Alex, where there's literally like shacks. And Alex is a crazy township. So is Deep Sluit, other side of Fourways. Other townships are not really like that. And again, it's one of those weird things where ordinary Black people are scared to be in Alex. So if you're a white person, a Black person will tell you, please don't go there, because I'm scared to go there. So
I was invited there, so I was curious. I mean, for me, I was following the same philosophy that you were that you were describing. But you shouldn't be reckless. You shouldn't just be
No, of course.
experiencing, putting yourself in dangerous situations. I mean, South Africa is full with many dangerous places, but
Yes, don't be
it
naive
doesn't.
at all.
Excuse me.
Don't be naive at all.
Yeah,
Please
don't
get
be naive.
someone who's
Absolutely.
local there to walk
Yeah,
around
no,
with you.
I was lucky enough to be with some locals from there, so they could show me around, show me what's up there. But yeah,
Sure.
Penuel, to move the conversation along, there's something else that I also wanted to touch on that I think is that I wanted to pick your brain on, and that's specifically the character traits within your life's experience that you think have stood out to you, that you've identified in people that you have a lot of respect for, the type of character traits that you like to see around you. I mean, we've been talking about how you about some advice about how to go about life, but I mean, let's focus a little bit more on the personal. What do you think are some character traits that you have, that you admire and that you'd like to see in more people because it makes them a better person?
I think my last point on Alex, there's a gentleman called Miles Gubega. He's also going to be in a future episode of the Penal Show. And he's come up with this concept called Dwalisa, where poor people that can't afford like a big bag of maize or sugar or get a big tub of cooking oil, he's gone old school, because this is an old school concept where you come with a small container or a small cup and you get a little bit of rice just to be able to eat, a little bit of maybe maize, because a lot of people get paid per day or per week. So they don't have enough money to be able to buy like a big bag of anything. And he's created these amazing containers. I think they also work as Wi-Fi hotspots. And I think they're also looking to add alternative energy to them that can power into the community. I think when the show comes out, it's going to be a really cool concept that he's going to be speaking about. And I first bumped into it when I was just driving around Alex. Young, innovative South Africans that are doing amazing things in those spaces. I'm a very weird person, Ernst, I won't lie. I admire so many different people for so many different things. I think I myself am split into different people. You know, I was going to say like apartheid personified within myself. That's why I can chill, for example, with like white racists and understand them. I can chill with violent taxi guys who are killers and understand them. I can sit with heavily religious nuns and understand them. Yeah, man, I can sit with different types of people. But I will say this, when you look historically, because I love studying history, the people that stand out, it's two types of people, basically. It's number one, people that come up with visions and then make them a reality. Sadly, a lot of those people have actually been dictators. You find that dictators actually get things done. Whereas some of these other guys that believe in democracy and being liberal, there's a lot of talking, not so much implementation. You know, I'll be a bit controversial because I think some people believe I am. We judge the apartheid government, of course, for all the atrocities. But if you look at the things that they built with their racist agenda, as an example, the way the Bantustans were built and how the Bantustans had their own leaders. And to this day, some people speak about Oputatswana, places like Ciskei, Transkei, KwaZulu-Natal, where universities were built, where, you know, may have been done for bad, malicious reasons, whatever the case may be. But the bottom line is these people got things done. Look at Hitler in Germany, what Nazi Germany built. I can admire that, people that do. There are obviously many good people that do a lot of great things as well. We don't speak about the Egyptian pharaohs. The Egyptian pharaohs didn't have caterpillars and cranes. They were using slaves to build pyramids. And today Africans love the pyramids. Oh, the pyramids are so beautiful. They were built by slaves, you know, local slaves. So I've admired people that get things done. Could be Elon Musk, could be Kanye West. I have a vision. I want to build a car brand. I want to build a fashion line, and they do it. I have a high respect for people like that.
I want to go to Mars.
No, I'm not going to Mars. You guys can enjoy it. I'm going to try and fix this little planet and rather enjoy this. You guys can leave with Elon. I'm
Well, if
good.
you want to see what Mars looks like, just drive into the Northern Cape. There's some places in the Northern Cape that looks like exactly like Mars. I mean, you go look some of the photos from Mars. I mean, those are definitely just taken here in the Karoo Desert,
In the
and
Northern
then
Cape, I
and
believe you.
blending.
I believe you. The Northern Cape, boy. Yeah, let me not talk about it. I've got friends from the Northern Cape. They always get upset when I speak about the Northern Cape. The other people that I highly respect are visionaries who are very good at selling a story. Could be a pastor, a priest, could be maybe a politician. It could be a musician. You know, people like Michael Jackson, Bob Marley, Bono at U2. People that have the ability to plant very beautiful seeds in the minds of other people. And they literally inspire others to do good and to create good. So historically, those are the people I look to. The dictators, for example, like I said, and it's not just them, it's people that whoever comes up with an idea and executes. I want to build Soul Tech, a skills institution that will help children, young people learn skills so they can build this nation. And then you make it happen. I can respect that. I will always respect that versus other people saying, oh, you know, we deserve these types of schools. Oh, we deserve this, but you're not doing anything. You're just speaking, but you're not creating anything. Then, like I said, the second one is people that are genuinely saying, guys, let us plant trees in the townships. Let us eat healthier food. Let us send our children to play sports. Let us travel this country. Let us go out into the world and tell a beautiful story about South Africa so that we can invite the greatest minds to come here and work with us. Religious leaders, you know, people like Jesus, people like Muhammad, people like Buddha, you know, people that could tell an amazing story. And to this day, the majority of people, they cannot argue that those were not good people. Those were good people. You can hate the Bible, you can hate the Quran, but you can't say Jesus was a bad guy. He didn't kill anyone, he didn't hurt anyone. He was spreading a very beautiful message, and to this day, it inspires people. To this day. So those are the people that I admire for me. And I think maybe the lesson for the individual is become a person of action. If you have things you say you're going to do, could be something as small as I'm going to fix the ceiling. Fix it. Be a person that gets things done. I'm going to help my child learn how to ride a bicycle. Make time and make that happen so that you can be a person when you say, I will do something, people can believe in you. And one day, if you need investments, if you need people to vote for you, you have got a track record. You've fixed the ceiling. You've helped your child learn how to ride a bicycle. You've helped out at your child's school. You've helped out in the community. You've closed 10 potholes. You're a person of action. Then number two, be a good storyteller and be intentional about your stories. Make sure that they are educational so that people that are listening can be like, hey, you know, that guy was just telling me a story, but I've learned something and now I can go and implement it at home. And make sure that they are inspirational. What that means is the story must be beyond the self. You must basically be like, have you been to Switzerland? Have you been to this beautiful country? What if we start today and plant these trees or build this infrastructure, and one day in like 10 generations, in 100 years, we'll have our own pyramids and our own Eiffel Tower, and the whole world will be here. And plant these seeds in people's heads to do the type of work that is beyond them, where they are willing to suffer. They're like, you know what? I will suffer and endure and do the hard stuff because this person just told me this beautiful story, you know? And I think we all have the ability to do that. And it's worse now because we have the internet and we have our cell phones. It's just speaking about a dark continent, besides the fact that we don't have electricity on the African continent or here anymore. We need the type of leaders who are going to plug Africa into the internet. Besides traveling to the rest of the world, the internet can be the biggest game changer because good education at your fingertips, resources at your fingertips, you can connect with the brightest minds anywhere across the world. And in real time, they can send you money that you can convert into real assets. Buy a tractor. You can buy building materials. You can go and source something with the internet. So one of the things I'm passionate about is really trying to get free Wi-Fi into as many places as possible. And look, not just free Wi-Fi. One of the things I admire about China, even though communist China people hate it, being intentional about the type of Wi-Fi connection you want. So if we're going to give free Wi-Fi in the townships, we must only allow those people to go onto certain websites. And those websites must be educational. They must have something to do with skills, something to do with how to grow things, how to build things, and not just porn and rubbish entertainment, which, by the way, that is normally quite easy to access. It's normally the tougher education, which you basically have to pay an arm and a leg to access. And I think the internet can be a game changer in that regard. But to answer you, that's what I look for. Those two things, I think, in people. And I think those are the things people should aspire to.
But there's something else, Penuel. I think to take everything that you've said now, there's one more crucial ingredient that goes with that. And that is I'm going to have to take out some of my best English here. I'm just looking for the word. It's the postponement of gratification. I think that's what you call it, where too many people want their success now. They want their tree now. They want their university now, instead of building something for the future, something that you might not even see. My favorite story that demonstrates that is from Europe, where you see these beautiful cathedrals, these beautiful churches that are built there. But some of those churches and cathedrals took hundreds of years to build. The people that designed them and the people that started building them knew that they would not see that church when it was done. They knew their children would not even see that church when it was done, but their children's children might see it. And that's a mindset that's just vanished. It doesn't exist anymore, where people build. It's that old ancient Greek proverb of planting trees knowing that you'll never sit under their shade. That is the mentality that we need to combine with what you've just described, where you take you go the extra mile, you make a difference, you put your time and effort into improving the lives of the people in your community and the people around you, but you do it with the mindset of, even if I don't pick any of the fruits of it, as long as I made a positive difference for a future generation, that's then I've reached my goal. I mean, Philip Buys always says politicians always work for the next election. At the Solidariteit movement and at AfriForum, we work for the next generation. And that's a mindset that's created amazing opportunities, established amazing things. Even we've been so successful that people can't help but think of conspiracy theories of how we achieve it. You know what the conspiracy is? It's a organization of people with a shared vision coming together, conspiring to build a better future for their children and for their children's children. That's the conspiracy, but that's not what people want to hear.
Yeah, it's very sad. I don't understand, and maybe again traveling, maybe again like what I was saying, the ability to tell story, the electricity we have today, the internet we have today, the cars and airplanes we have today, the books and the movies we get to enjoy are all built on layers and layers and layers of human collaboration, innovation, ingenuity across continents, time, genders. You look at my favorite example, at least these days, is the Marvel movies, the Avengers and the like. If you look at the various concepts, so each of those movies, as an example, maybe has 50,000 people that work on the movie. They maybe have 20 to 100 people on set, but maybe 50,000 behind the scenes. If you look at the credits when the movie's done, there's people from Japan, people from India, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, Canada, working on one movie. Then in the movie, there are so many different races of people, Black people, Mexicans, Germans, etc. in the movie. Then if you break it fully down, you start looking at the fact that these people use cameras that they didn't invent. They have to use electricity they didn't invent. They have to use costumes and designs that were inspired by Asia or Germany or Africa. Some of the languages in some of the movies, I mean, Dr. John Kani introduced isiXhosa, into the Black Panther movies. So now we've got representation there. His son was there. Some of the movies have got Mandarin. Some of the movie with Scarlett Johansson, they speak Russian, I think, in that movie. Like, So many people, to what you're saying, have conspired to give us the privileges we have today. Even if you think you're not privileged, we don't have to wake up in the morning and go hunt buck with the spear. We don't have to go fetch water with a straw mat or bucket of sorts. We are
Dirty
privileged,
water that's
even if
not
you live
even
in a shack.
drinkable.
Yeah, it's not even drinkable. Even if
Yeah.
you live in a shack, those tiles that you have, the fact that you're wearing clothing, like all of that is a collaboration of people over time. People that would never have seen what it is today. And the least you can do is pass that on and add a little bit. And it breaks my heart. And this is why I used to get so angry. I meditate now and I woosah, about the ANC government. We're not speaking hundreds of years ago history. We're speaking their comrades, their peers, their grandfathers and grandmothers who were killed, who died, who suffered. Women that were catching trains and walking to go be domestic workers or people to go be mine workers so that we can have the privileges for them to live in Hyde Park, in big fancy homes, for them to be able to fly private, for them to send their kids to top private schools. There are people that suffered for that as Black ANC political leaders. The least they can do, so that's them. Obviously, they inherited from the apartheid government, your ESCOMs, your SASOLs, etc. The least they can do, the least, is to preserve. Never mind adding. Don't build more power stations. Don't, just preserve what we have so that the next generation is saying, at least this was taken care of. But they are moving backwards. They are destroying the legacies of Black people that suffered and died, the legacies of white people that came and built infrastructure. I mean, the roads we have, as much as they have potholes, if you travel the world, we have got fantastic roads. Our national highways are beautiful, but these things are falling apart. We had like one of the greatest electrical utilities in the world, not just on the continent, in the world.
In the year 2002, ESCOM was awarded Power Company of the Global Power Company of the Year. South Africa had had the most extent, still has. I mean, after so many disastrous management by the ANC, still has one of the most extensive railway systems on the continent, but it's falling apart.
Geez, they've destroyed Transnet. They've destroyed ESCOM. They kind of destroyed and sold off SAA. Do you think we should have our own plane?
Yeah.
It's painful. And it's just like I said, to what you're speaking about, you shouldn't need a lot to be able to inspire someone to delay gratification and not chase instant. If you've got food and shelter and somewhat of a decent life, which is why I'm a minimalist, because I live on the bare minimum, it should be enough. That means you now have so much more time and resources to now build for the future. So that in future, kids are like, it doesn't make sense why we live in such glory and beauty. It's unreal. The cathedrals you're speaking about, the pyramids, you're like, humans didn't build this. It must have been something else. And it wasn't. It's exactly what you're saying. A group of people who today I think are idiots. I think AfriForum people are stupid. You must be stupid to come together, put a little bit of money together and build this thing that you'll never enjoy and hope for the best. It must be stupid because everyone else is smart. They want a Ferrari. They want to party. They want to wear expensive clothes, and they're the genius. They are super intelligent. They're better than us. We're the idiots. We're so backwards and why would you do that? You'll never. We're stupid, I guess. And look, my mom grew up in a village, Eguvugeni, in KZN. And from there, she grew up not really with her mom and dad, with her grandmother. She used to fetch water from the river. She used to fetch firewood from the river. She grew up in a mud hut. She met my dad. They moved to a township, Emadadeni, in Newcastle. From there, she became a school teacher. She became a teacher. She was a teacher basically her whole life. She became deputy principal later. In that cycle, she bought her own car. From buying her own car, she had children, us. She sent us to decent schools so we can speak nice English and praat mooi Afrikaans and travel and experience. Today, I'm living in Joburg and I've moved my mother up and we've traveled. We've flown around the country. We've eaten at amazing restaurants. We've seen beauty. We've done charity work with my mom, giving back to communities. And she has seen like the basics and the bare minimum. She has seen the heights of this country in one lifetime. And I've told her she's so privileged. But in her coming up, it was never about her. She was like, as long as I do for my kids, they can then build from there. And for me, that's what I'm about. I've got 2 kids that are currently in China with their mom, experiencing the world. 2 of my other kids are going to be traveling to the Netherlands later on this year, experiencing the world, because we're just trying to do our bit so that we can connect, so that we can impact the world in a better way, so that we can change society. But there are people hell-bent on keeping people ignorant. They make sure that everything they learn at school is useless. They make sure that the churches they go to today are corrupt. Churches used to be places that do a lot of community work. Like that was their function. Today, churches are not building schools. They're not building amazing cathedrals. They're not feeding people. They're not educating people. And then they make sure TV, radio, social media is just junk. And it's just rotting your brain. And like I said, maybe they're the smart people because they're rich and powerful. And we're the idiots that still believe in communities that can come together. And just with 10, 20, 30, 50 people can make a difference where tomorrow Penuel has been captured. AfriForum must be paying him. It can't be that he's living a good life. There must be some rich white guy that's paying him. Or he must be an ANC puppet. It's impossible. My little peanut brain cannot fathom that some Zulu boy from Newcastle can become so successful and do so well. There must be something else because my brain refuses.
He must be Rob Harsov's creation. I mean, that was your latest video, yeah.
Yeah, it has to be. So it hurts. And for me, what I'm trying to do, because I said I don't want to be angered by politicians anymore. I want to now start finding the enlightened people, the people that are willing to be stupid and do these small acts and come together and collaborate and create a better future. And I hope there's a very beautiful picture of a school of fish, small fish, that are eating like one big shark, you know, and I want to be part of that community because the sharks are dominating now. And look, it's a historical thing. It's happened all the times in history. And this is why empires fall, you know. It's because the guys at the top become so blind and so ignorant that they self-destruct and then a new leadership comes in. And sadly, maybe our great-great-grandchildren will go and mess things up again. But the hope is that we will have planted enough seeds so that the people of the time will once again come together, collaborate, and carry on trying to create just a better world for humanity. It breaks my heart, but we're here till we die. And at least if we can try and do good, that's all we can do.
No, absolutely. And that's a great answer, Penuel. But while you were answering, I see Colonel Chris Wyatt from the USA has tuned in. Goeienaand, Chris. Nice to see you here. I hope you're getting some insightful information. And then also let's see what the chat was saying while you were talking. Let's see. Everyone is just seems to be very, very much in agreement with your comments there, Penuel. Penuel, I mean, your show is a bit longer format than mine. Mine is I try to stick to an hour. So in regards to taking my format into account, I'm going to start wrapping up here, and I'm going to give you the opportunity that I give every one of my guests. And that opportunity is put yourself in this space where you are able to implant one idea or something at the back of the minds of everyone listening to this episode. What would you tell the audience, something that you'd want them to think about this week? Keep at the back of their mind, chew on it a little bit. Maybe when they're sitting outside tomorrow smoking a cigarette, they remember what Penuel said last night and they're thinking about it again. If you could implant an idea, a question, anything, it can be short, it can be one word, it can be anything. What would you implant at the back of their mind for the week ahead? Something to think about.
I might not get a chance. So Aris, I want to say thank you so much for inviting me again. I'm appreciating the relationship we're building. I'm learning a lot. And I'm hoping that we're going to be a good example of whatever South Africa needs to be for the future. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in, to everyone who commented, and everyone, I guess, who's going to be watching this as well. It really means a lot to me. I try to always be conscious of the generosity and the goodness in people, because it's become rare these days. So thank you so much to you and to everyone who's tuned in. I've started my own movement. It's called a religion. It's not really a religion. It's more of a movement called Penuelism. Kind of captures about 30 principles that I believe in, which I think people could find value in. They borrowed from other belief systems around the world. I think if it's going to be one idea, it's going to be this: study nature in detail. Nature has got almost all the answers we're looking for. And where we start getting lost, study nature, not just the animals. The animals are very, very important. The ecosystems, especially a movie like The Lion King, which shows you what happens when bad leadership comes into a space and destroys. That's Scar and the hyenas. And then you hope that the Simbas of the future or of the present, people like Ernst van Zyl, at some point rise up with their Timons and Pumbas, and they come back and they reclaim their pride rock, to make sure that the ecosystem works again. Look, lions eat buck. We know that. It's in their nature, but they are responsible in how they eat because they understand that there's a circle of life. Study nature, but not just the animals. Study the trees, study the plants. Our medicine, our food comes from there. Study how water flows. Study the minerals. Everything we're looking for, if you're ever lost, lies in nature. And sometimes nature gets angry and it punishes us, and we're not really paying attention. This is not a conspiracy theory, but people that are religious, when we speak about the Bible and the story of Noah and the ark, when things like floods and tsunamis and those kind of things are happening, just keep quiet and listen. There's a reason why certain animals migrate. There's a reason why animals hibernate. There's a reason why animals sometimes fast, why they change their locations. We need to start listening to nature a bit more. And maybe if I'll just steal one in there: human collaboration that transcends race, gender, nationality, whatever it may be. Almost all the privileges and good things we have today have been collaborations with some of the people you probably hate the most. And we need to find those pockets of collaboration. The Marvel series of movies is a good example, and so are the Springboks in South Africa. Thank you.
Well, Penuel, you've used the opportunity to also to say goodbye in a sense, and but I would have given you an opportunity to have some final words there, but thank you. That's a great way to wrap it up. And just to remind everyone, links to all of your YouTube channel, your Twitter, everything is in the description, because I know people are lazy. You can tell them Google Penuel the Black Pen, and they're like, I don't have time for that. But if you give them a link, they can just click with one finger, then they'll do it. So there's links to all of that for all the lazy people in the description. You can go check out his content, his YouTube channel, and follow him on Twitter. Penuel, thank you for your time. I wish we had more time, but like I said, I like to keep to my 1 hour format. It seems to work. It seems to nice to hold people's attention. And it was an excellent conversation. I really enjoyed it. And then thank you everyone that tuned in. We had a very nice audience, a live audience here tonight. Thank you for all of your questions. Thank you for all of your comments. They were very nice that I can put them on the screen. Adds to the content. I'm going to see some last comments coming in here, so I'm just going to put them on screen. Hein Velman says, Penuel, been following you for some time on Twitter. Took a while to get your perspective, and need to admit it's becoming more vivid by the day. Keep up the good work. Nikki Davey says, nature has answers when you silence your mind and take the time to spend in nature. Less cell phone, more nature. Roy van Zyl, no relation to me, says, a great chat with Penuel. What an inspiring outlook you have on life. Now it needs to be instilled in the youth of South Africa. All right, guys, thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in. If you are new to this channel and you like these types of conversations, subscribe for more. And as always, leave a like. It helps out the show. And if you didn't catch this episode live, you can still take part in the conversation. Share your thoughts by sharing them in the comment section. I read all of them, respond to as many as I can, and I really appreciate your feedback. Penuel, I hope you have an excellent week ahead. Stay determined, and I hope you achieve your goals and that you keep working hard. There's a lot of people in the chat also said they hope you remain as determined and focused on your vision as you are. We will definitely chat again. All right, cheers. Have a good one, and God bless.
Thanks a lot, Addis.